start to finish, this is a walkthrough of how I make my morning coffee. First off, we got to get some coffee beans, and I keep my beans in this vacuum tight container because coffee beans are a lot like potato chips, surprisingly enough, where if you leave the bag open, they're gonna get stale. Next, I'm gonna weigh out 18 grams of beans because in the coffee world, this is sort of the standard dose for a double shot of espresso. Now I'm gonna grab my spray bottle and spritz the beans with some water. This is gonna help reduce static electricity when the coffee beans go through the grinder. In coffee grinders, there's two pieces of metal that spin together really fast that crush and grind the coffee beans, and this is gonna generate static electricity. This is gonna make the coffee grounds stick to the inside of the grinder, and we don't want that, so the water is gonna help reduce that sticking. While those coffee beans are grinding, we can start preparing other things. So I'm gonna grab my portafilter and make sure that it's clean and completely dry. So I use this little portafilter scrub brush thing to scrub the inside, and then I use a towel to make sure that it's completely dry. By now the beans should be almost done grinding, so I'll go back and check to make sure that all the beans went through the grinder, and I come to find that there are a few beans that are sitting up in this top little chamber, so I'll push those down, and in the meantime, while those grind, I can start pouring my milk. Use whatever milk that you'd like. I like to use whole milk. Sometimes I use a higher quality whole milk. Sometimes I use oat milk. I'm not here to milk shame you. Now, this is the most satisfying part of the espresso making process, in my opinion. It's called puck prep, and it's where we prepare the espresso puck for extraction. So let's start by throwing our coffee grounds into our portafilter as gracefully as possible. We don't want to lose out on some of our coffee grounds here, okay? And we're going to take our WDT tool, which is really just an acupuncture needle that breaks up clumps within the bed. There's lots of options out there for these types of tools. Some are $350, and if you have the cheddar, I'd say go for it, but there are also some that are $20, and those ones work just as well. So I'll just go in circular motions until I don't see any more clumps, and then I'll use my spring-loaded tamper to flatten the grounds into the form of a puck. And the final cherry on top is throwing on one of these happy pucks, and this is going to help with water distribution, and it's also going to help keep the espresso machine clean. Then we'll strap the portafilter back into the espresso machine and grab the cup that we're going to make our latte in. I'm using these latte art cups from my glassware brand called Fleur, shameless plug, and then I'll start pouring my espresso. What's nice is that the milk is already poured into our frothing pitcher, so we can just start the espresso and go grab our milk and start frothing. The espresso machine that I'm using is called the Le Bianca, and it can froth milk and make espresso at the same exact time. As I'm frothing my milk, I'm constantly looking at my scale to see when we hit 36 grams of espresso out. I'm looking for a 1-to-2 ratio. If you remember, we put 18 grams of coffee in, so we're looking for 36 grams of coffee out. For the milk, I'm gonna let it aerate for about 3 to 5 seconds. Aerating, for people that don't know, is that noise where it goes. It's basically just incorporating air into the milk, bigger air bubbles. And then for the remainder of the milk frothing process, we're gonna submerge the steam wand tip, stop aerating, and instead texture the milk. This is where we break up those bigger air bubbles that we just introduced into smaller, finer air bubbles. Knowing when your milk is at the right temperature is kind of an experience thing, but here's a good rule of thumb that you can follow. As soon as that exterior of the pitcher is too hot to touch, turn it off. You're done. Don't worry, our espresso shot is not dying. That is a myth. That is not real. Let's think about this logically. How does a liquid die, and if it's in syrup or milk, magically not die? People that judge the world champion barista competitions don't even drink the espresso for 3 to 4 minutes after it's pulled. So why would they drink a dead shot? Now that our workspace is cleaned up and our steam wand is purged and we're not crusty milk people, we can pour our latte. Seriously though, make sure to run your steam wand a little bit after you're done frothing your milk to make sure that there's no milk sitting up in there. Latte art is something that I'm not very good at, but I'm working on, so I'm going to try to explain it the best way that I can, but there are better people to explain this, like Emily Bryant or Lance Hendricks, so look up those people. So you're going to want to start by pouring your milk 3 to 4 centimeters above the crema. This is going to set a base, and then you're going to want to get your frothing pitcher's tip as close as you possibly can. That's the only way that the milk art is going to appear. But if you're like me and you're struggling with pouring latte art, don't worry. It's not going to make the latte automatically taste better. It just looks a little bit better. Look at that. The froth is perfect. The foam layer is perfect. It's perfect. Enjoy. Thank you guys for watching.